The backlog at the U.S. Immigration Court now exceeds more than 1 million cases. Trump administration officials blame Congress for failing to fix the failed immigration system. They say immigration courts have more cases right now than they can handle. Conservative author and pundit Michelle Malkin says people with good intentions are actually enabling a worldwide criminal racket in human smuggling. On this week's Global Lane program on the CBN News Channel, she said the best way to help people improve their lives is not through immigration, but by helping them in their home countries.
We are the most generous country in the world when it comes to dispensing that kind of foreign aid to places like Central America and Mexico. But at the same time, if you're undermining that by convincing people to cross our borders and break multiple laws and then not have an orderly immigration system, it doesn't serve anybody very well.
I remember what the late Howard Phillips told me when I first met him in Washington, D.C. back in 1985. He said, follow the money. Now, I know you have followed the money. So who is funding the fight to keep our borders open and transform our nation through mass migration?
That is the fundamental question. And it took me nearly 500 pages, 1,600 plus footnotes, and the documentation of more than 400 individual groups and entities, not only based here in the United States, but really globally. And many of your viewers will be well familiar with the role that the United Nations and transnational organizations like the European Union have played in trying to usurp American sovereignty by undermining our enforcement of immigration laws. Many of your viewers will also be very aware of the very famous, or rather infamous, hedge fund billionaire George Soros, who has spent the last couple of decades building up a massive infrastructure under the umbrella of open society foundations. But I think what may shock your viewers, and it certainly shocked me as I was documenting it in the book, was the extent to which taxpayer funding itself has helped subsidize this network. And in particular, the Refugee Resettlement Program, which is run by the United Nations in conjunction with the State Department, the Health and Human Services Department, and a small coterie of lucrative government contractors, almost exclusively religious nonprofits, I really believe is an eye-opener for people because it totals billions of dollars, unfortunately, to the detriment of our national safety.
And I know sanctuary cities, there are more than 500 of them around the country. Why so many? What's their real purpose? And I think you mentioned Seattle as well.
Oh, yes. And many of these sanctuary cities I've had the unfortunate experience of living in and experiencing. Yes, Seattle. Yes, Portland. More recently in the headlines is Montgomery County, Maryland. And I also was a former resident of this notorious ground zero of the idea of sanctuary spaces, safe spaces for illegal aliens, many of them repeat criminal offenders. The reason why there are so many of them is because of this entire infrastructure trying to undermine local, state, and federal cooperation among law enforcement officials to make sure that if we know somebody is here illegally, if they have been arrested multiple times for everything from drunk driving or mere misdemeanors, all the way up to rape and murder. That's why Montgomery County, Maryland is in the headlines. And I'm on my tour now in the swamp and will be helping hold a rally on the steps of the Montgomery County government complex, where the executive there has declared defiantly that they will not cooperate with ICE agents who are trying to apprehend violent criminals.
And Michelle, I lived in Maryland for a long time when I worked in D.C. and Tacoma Park, Maryland. They allow non-citizens to vote there. Is that correct?
That's right. And that phenomenon, which really was spearheaded in Tacoma Park, Maryland, has spread to other places in the country, some of them not surprising. San Francisco, for example, now allows non-citizens to vote in school board elections. And you can see the ramifications here. What it is the steady blurring of the lines between legal citizens and illegal citizens. And, you know, it's not just native-born Americans that are concerned about these things. I am the child of legal immigrants who came to this country in 1970 from the Philippines. They swore an oath of allegiance to the Constitution and its laws and to help protect our country from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Fundamentally, if we do not as a country assimilate the massive amounts of people who are coming in here, and if we refuse to be choosy and, yes, discriminating about the people that we bring into this country, then we're not a country at all. We can't promise religious liberty to future generations that come here. We can't promise any liberties at all.
Okay, we could talk to you all day, but we're out of time. The book is Open Borders, Inc. Who is Funding America's Destruction? Michelle Malkin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.